Chapter 1. The Pressure Cooker. April Sonnis stared at the blinking cursor on her monitor like it was mocking her. The quarterly report was due in 20 minutes, and her brain had decided to take a vacation without notice. Numbers swam in front of her eyes, columns and rows blurring into a gray soup of corporate despair. Her phone buzzed against the desk. She didn't need to look to know who it was. Carl. Of course it was Carl. The man had a sixth sense for texting at the exact moment her stress level hit DEFCON 1. Dinner tomorrow with your parents still good? The message sat there, innocent, like a puppy wagging its tail. April stared at it, her stomach tightening. Dinner with her parents. The words felt heavier than they should. She loved Carl. She really did. But lately every mention of future made her chest feel like a vice grip. She typed back, "Yep, looking forward to it." Then immediately regretted the period. Period was so final, so confident. She added a smiley face, then deleted it, then added a heart, then deleted that too. Finally, she hit send before she could spiral into emoji purgatory. Her phone buzzed again. Great. Can't wait to see them. Love you. April stared at the words. Love you. She loved him too. She knew she did. But lately, saying it felt like stepping onto a frozen lake and hearing the first crack. April. She jumped. Her boss, a man who wore stress like cologne, was standing at her cubicle wall. Report ready? Almost, she said, forcing a smile that felt like a bad Botox job. Just polishing. He nodded and walked away, leaving behind a faint trail of coffee breath and existential dread. April turned back to her screen, fingers flying over the keyboard. She could do this. She could finish the report, survive dinner tomorrow, and maybe, just maybe, figure out why the idea of forever made her want to crawl under her desk and live there. Her phone buzzed again. This time it was her best friend, Jenna. Girl, did you see that meme I sent? Marriage equals Wi-Fi. Great when it works, hell when it doesn't. April snorted and, without thinking, hit forward. To Carl. The second she saw his name in the to field, her soul left her body. She stabbed at the screen like she was playing whack-a-mole, but it was too late. Message sent. Oh no, she whispered, staring at the glowing evidence of her stupidity. Her phone buzzed almost instantly. Carl, Wi-Fi? April typed back at lightning speed. OMG, wrong person. Ignore that. Totally not about us. Carl replied with a laughing emoji and a heart. April slumped in her chair, cheeks burning. Smooth. Sonny's. Real smooth. By the time 5 o'clock rolled around, April felt like she'd run a marathon in heels. She packed up her laptop, grabbed her coat, and headed for the elevator. Carl called just as the doors slid shut. Hey, babe. His voice warm and steady, like always. Tomorrow, thinking 7? Your mom said she's making that roast I love. 7's perfect, April said, forcing cheer into her tone. She's excited to see you. I'm excited too. He paused. You okay? You sound tired. Just work stuff, she lied. I'll be fine after a glass of wine and a bubble bath. Good. You deserve it. And just like that, he made her heart ache. Carl was good, solid, loyal, the kind of man who never put himself in a position where even perception could hurt their relationship. He was everything she'd prayed for. So why did the idea of forever feel like a trapdoor under her feet? Love you, Carl said. April hesitated for half a second too long. Love you too. When the elevator doors opened, she stepped out into the cold December air, her breath fogging in front of her. Tomorrow, she'd sit across from her parents with Carl at her side, smiling like the perfect couple. And inside, she'd be wondering why her chest felt like it was full of bees. Chapter 2. Saturday at home. April pulled into her parents' driveway just as the winter sun dipped low, painting the sky in streaks of orange and pink. The house looked exactly as it had for decades. White siding, green shutters, and the faint smell of wood smoke curling from the chimney. It was the kind of home that whispered stability, the kind of home where nothing bad could happen. Which was ironic, considering the emotional hurricane currently brewing in April's chest. She killed the engine and sat for a moment, gripping the steering wheel like it was a lifeline. You love Carl. You do. You're just overthinking. That's all. Normal people panic about forever, right? Right? Her inner voice sounded unconvinced. The front door swung open before she could finish her pep talk. Her mom appeared, wearing an apron dusted with flour and the kind of smile that could power a small city. April, you're late. I was about to send your father out with a search party. April climbed out of the car, forcing a grin. Traffic was a nightmare. Everyone's apparently trying to escape the city before midnight. Her mom waved a hand. Excuses, excuses. Come in before you freeze. Inside, the house smelled like heaven. Roast beef, garlic, and fresh bread. April inhaled deeply, letting the scent wrap around her like a blanket. For a second, she almost forgot the existential dread gnawing at her ribs. Her dad was in the living room, crouched over the coffee table, repairing a lamp with the kind of concentration usually reserved for bomb disposal. He looked up as she entered, his face lighting up in that quiet, steady way that always made her feel safe. Hey kiddo, he said, wiping his hands on a rag. How's the big city treating you? Same old, April replied, dropping her bag by the couch. Deadlines, meetings, caffeine addiction. You know, the usual. He chuckled. Sounds glamorous. Her mom bustled in, carrying a tray of appetizers. Sit, sit. Tell us everything. How's work? How's Carl? Still treating you like a queen. April's stomach tightened. She perched on the edge of the couch, picking at a cracker like it held the secrets of the universe. Work's fine. Carl's great. Really great. Her mom gave her a look, the kind that could slice through steel. That sounded suspiciously like a press release. April laughed, a little too loudly. No, seriously. He's amazing. Loyal, thoughtful, funny. The whole package. Her mom smiled, satisfied. Good. You deserve someone solid. April nodded. But inside, the words echoed like a warning bell. Solid. Forever. No escape hatch. She felt her pulse quicken. Her mom sat beside her, lowering her voice. Sweetheart, you okay? You seem tense. April hesitated. She'd promised herself she wouldn't dump her neuroses on her parents, but the pressure had been building for weeks, and suddenly, the dam cracked. I don't know, she whispered. I love Carl. I do. But lately, every time I think about the future, I feel like I can't breathe. Her mom's brows knitted. You're not having doubts about him, are you? No, April said quickly. God, no. He's perfect. That's the problem. He's everything I ever wanted. And somehow that makes me panic. Her mom tilted her head, thoughtful. Sounds like you're scared. April let out a shaky laugh. Terrified, actually. And I don't even know why. Her mom patted her knee. Sweetheart, fear doesn't mean you're broken. It means you care. You want to get it right. April swallowed hard, blinking back sudden tears. I don't want to mess this up. You won't, her mom said gently. You're smarter than you think. Before April could respond, her dad wandered in, carrying the fixed lamp like a trophy. Look at that. Good as new. Her mom rolled her eyes. You and your projects. April smiled faintly, watching her dad set the lamp down with quiet pride. He was the foundation of everything she believed about love. Steady, reliable, unshakable. The kind of man she'd prayed for. And Carl was exactly that kind of man, which should have been comforting. So why did it feel like a weight pressing on her chest? Dinner was warm and loud, filled with laughter and stories. April played her part, smiling, nodding, defending Carl like a champion whenever her mom teased him for being too perfect. But inside, the storm raged on. Later, after dessert, April excused herself to the bathroom. On the way back, she paused in her childhood bedroom. It looked exactly the same. Posters on the walls, a bookshelf crammed with dog-eared novels. The quilt her grandmother made still folded at the foot of the bed. Nostalgia hit her like a wave. She wandered in, running her fingers over the desk where she'd written college essays and angsty journal entries. For a moment, she felt 16 again, dreaming about the future, certain it would be magical. Funny how certainty evaporates with age. On her way back to the kitchen, she passed her parents' room. That's when she saw it. A small black leather-bound journal on her dad's nightstand. She froze. Her dad, journaling? The idea was almost comical. He was the most practical man on earth. Journaling was for people who couldn't work out their emotions in their heads. Her dad didn't need paper to process feelings. He was solid, unshakable. April stared at the journal, curiosity sparking like static. 31 years doesn't erase that never-ending quest to know your parents more intimately. What did he write? Fishing stories? Grocery lists? Secret poetry? Before she could talk herself out of it, she stepped into the room and picked up the journal. It felt heavier than she expected, like it was holding secrets. Her pulse quickened. She slipped it under her arm and headed back to her old bedroom, calling out, "Gotta make a quick phone call," before shutting the door and locking it. April sat on the bed, staring at the journal like it might bite. She knew she shouldn't, but curiosity was a beast, and tonight it had teeth. She opened the cover before she could lose her nerve. Chapter 3. The journal. April stared at the black leather journal like it was radioactive. Her pulse thudded in her ears, and for a moment, she considered putting it back on the nightstand and pretending she'd never seen it. That would be the mature thing to do, the ethical thing, the thing her therapist, if she had one, would probably recommend. But curiosity was a stubborn creature, and tonight, it had her by the throat. She flipped the cover open, half expecting to find grocery lists or fishing notes, maybe a doodle of a trout. Instead, neat block letters stared back at her. June 14th, 2020. She's going to ruin her relationship with the best man she's ever known. April blinked. The words didn't compute at first. Then they slammed into her like a freight train. What? She whispered, as if the journal might answer. She read the line again, and again. Her stomach dropped. Her dad, her rock, her gold standard for love, had written that about her. About Carl. About now. Her hands shook as she flipped back a few pages, desperate for context. The entries were sparse, each one dated and brutally concise. No flowery language, no explanations, just verdicts. October 3rd, 2018, he's gonna break her heart. April's breath caught. That was about Mark, the guy she dated before Carl. The one who decided loyalty was optional after 4 months. Her dad had called it. Perfectly. She flipped further, pages rustling like whispers. High school entries. College entries. Every boyfriend she'd ever introduced to her parents was in here, dissected in a single sentence. Too selfish. Not ready for her. She deserves better. And every time he'd been right. April sat frozen, the weight of 31 years pressing down on her. Her dad wasn't just journaling, he was forecasting, like some kind of relationship meteorologist predicting storms before they hit. She turned back to the most recent entry, the one about Carl. She's going to ruin her relationship with the best man she's ever known. Her throat tightened. He didn't say Carl was wrong for her. He didn't say Carl would hurt her. He said she would ruin it. Oh my God, April whispered, pressing a hand to her mouth. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. Was she doing that? Was she sabotaging the best thing in her life because she couldn't get her head straight? She flipped back to the very first page, hoping for something, anything that would make sense of this. The earliest entry was dated when she was 16. March 12, 2010, first boyfriend. Sweet kid. Won't last. She's chasing fireworks. April let out a shaky laugh. Fireworks. Yeah, that sounded like her at 16 dreaming of epic love stories, the kind that burned bright and fast. But Carl wasn't fireworks. Carl was steady flame. Warm. Reliable. Safe. So why did safe feel like a trap? She closed the journal, heart pounding. Her dad knew her better than anyone. If he thought she was about to blow up her own happiness, maybe he was right. Maybe she needed help before it was too late. April stared at the ceiling, thoughts spinning like a carousel on steroids. She couldn't talk to Carl about this, not yet. And she couldn't keep spiraling alone. She needed someone neutral. Someone who could untangle the mess in her head. A therapist. The word popped into her mind like a lifeline. She'd never been to therapy before, but suddenly, it felt like the only sane option. April slipped the journal back into its hiding spot, her hands trembling. She plastered on a smile before heading downstairs, praying her parents wouldn't notice the storm raging behind her eyes. Chapter 4. Therapy. Table for one. April sat in the waiting room, clutching her purse like it contained state secrets. The walls were painted a soothing shade of blue, and a tiny fountain burbled in the corner, trying way too hard to convince her that everything was fine. It wasn't fine. She was about to spill her guts to a stranger with a framed degree and a box of tissues. The door opened, and out stepped a woman who looked like everyone's favorite aunt. Gray curls, bright scarf, and a laugh that sounded like champagne fizz. "April Sonnis?" she said, her voice warm enough to melt butter. April stood, knees wobbling. "That's me. Come on in," the woman said, ushering her into an office that smelled faintly of lavender and optimism. "I'm Dr. Marlene. Make yourself comfortable." Comfortable, right? April perched on the edge of a plush chair, feeling like a fraud. "Thanks," she mumbled, setting her purse down like it might run away. "Dr. Marlene settled into her chair, crossing her legs with easy grace. "So, what brings you here today?" April swallowed hard. Commitment issues?" The words came out like a question, which was not reassuring. Dr. Marlene smiled. "Commitment issues are like snowflakes, no two are alike. Tell me more." April took a deep breath. "Okay, so, I'm 31. I've been with my boyfriend for 2 years. He's amazing. Like, annoyingly amazing. Loyal, kind, funny, the whole deal. And I love him. I really do. But lately, every time I think about forever, I feel like I'm choking on a balloon." Dr. Marlene tilted her head. "A balloon?" "Yeah," April said, flailing her hands. "Like, it's colorful and fun, but also suffocating? I don't know. I'm bad at metaphors." The therapist chuckled. "You're doing fine. So, you love him, but the idea of permanence feels overwhelming." "Exactly." April leaned forward, desperate for validation. "And it makes no sense because he's perfect. My parents adore him. My friends adore him. Even my cat. Well, if I had a cat, it would adore him." Dr. Marlene's eyes twinkled. "What do you think is underneath that fear?" April hesitated. "Failure," she blurted. "I think I'm afraid of failing. My parents have this perfect marriage. Like, annoyingly perfect. They've been together forever, and they still hold hands at the grocery store. I grew up thinking that was the standard, and now I'm terrified I'll screw it up before it even starts." Dr. Marlene nodded slowly. "Ah, so you're not afraid of commitment. You're afraid of not living up to an ideal." April blinked. "Yes, exactly. Oh my God. You cracked me in 5 minutes. Do you have like a therapist hall of fame?" The therapist laughed, a warm, bubbly sound. "I've had practice, but let's dig deeper. When you think about your parents' marriage, what does it represent to you?" "Security," April said without hesitation. "Stability. Love that doesn't quit. And if your relationship didn't look exactly like theirs," April chewed her lip, "then I guess I'd feel like I failed." Dr. Marlene leaned forward. April, your parents' marriage is their story. It's not your finish line. You're writing your own book. April stared at her, the words sinking in like sunlight through clouds. That's terrifying and comforting at the same time. Good, Dr. Marlene said with a grin. Growth usually feels like that. April laughed, a shaky sound. So what do I do? Besides panic less, start by being honest with yourself and with Carl. Fear thrives in silence. And remember, love isn't magic. It's work, respect, and loyalty. If you're willing to put in the effort, you're already ahead. April nodded, feeling something loosen in her chest. For the first time in weeks, she could breathe. As she left the office, she texted Carl. Therapy was enlightening. Can we talk tonight? He replied instantly. Always. Love you. April stared at the screen, a smile tugging at her lips. Maybe forever wasn't a trap. Maybe it was a choice. Chapter 5. Carl, unfiltered. April picked the coziest corner table at their favorite Italian place, hoping dim lighting and carbs would soften the blow of what she was about to say. She'd rehearsed the conversation in her head all day. Calm, rational, mature. No panic, no weird metaphors about balloons. Just honesty. Carl arrived right on time, as always. He shrugged off his coat, his smile warm enough to melt the frost clinging to April's nerves. Hey, gorgeous. He kissed her cheek, then slid into the seat across from her. You look amazing. April smiled, though her stomach was doing somersaults. Thanks. You too. The waiter appeared, took their drink order, and vanished. April gripped her water glass like it was a flotation device. Okay, April, you've got this. Just ease into it. Start with something light, then pivot to therapy. Then, so, Carl said, unfolding his napkin. Tomorrow's dinner was great. Your parents are the best. April blinked. Tomorrow's dinner? Carl chuckled. Last night's dinner. Sorry. My brain's fried. Oh, April laughed nervously. Yeah, they adore you. Good, Carl said, grinning. Because I adore them too. And you. He reached across the table, brushing his fingers over hers. You okay? You seem tense. April inhaled sharply. Here we go. I'm fine. Well, not fine. More like medium rare. Carl raised an eyebrow. Medium rare? Like a steak, April blurted. Not raw, not well done. Just somewhere in between. Carl laughed, shaking his head. You're adorable. What's going on? April's heart pounded. She'd planned to ease into this, but her brain had other ideas. Do you ever think about dying alone? The words hung in the air like a bad smell. April slapped a hand over her mouth. Oh my God, that was not what I meant to say. Carl stared at her, stunned. Then, to her horror, he burst out laughing. Wow, okay, that's one way to start dinner. April groaned, sinking lower in her chair. Ignore that, please. My brain short-circuited. Carl reached across the table again, his eyes warm. April, talk to me. What's really going on? She took a deep breath, forcing the words out before she could chicken out. I've been scared. About the future. About us. Not because of you, you're amazing. It's me. I've been freaking out about forever. Carl's expression softened. Forever's a big word. I know, April said, voice trembling. And I love you. I do. But I realized I've been putting this insane pressure on myself to make everything perfect. Like my parents' marriage. And it's been messing with my head. Carl squeezed her hand. So what are you saying? I'm saying. April swallowed hard. I started seeing a therapist. Carl blinked. Really? Yeah. April braced for judgment, but his face lit up instead. That's actually amazing, he said. I'm proud of you. April stared at him, floored. You are. Of course, Carl said, smiling. You care enough about us to work through your stuff. That's huge. April felt something loosen in her chest, like a knot unraveling. I was terrified you'd think I was broken. Carl shook his head. You're human. And honestly, I'd rather have you working on yourself than pretending everything's fine. April laughed, relief flooding her veins. Wow, okay, that went better than expected. The waiter returned with their drinks, oblivious to the emotional earthquake that had just passed. April raised her glass, her smile genuine this time. To honesty, she said. Carl clinked his glass against hers. To us. And for the first time in weeks, April felt like maybe, just maybe, forever wasn't a trap. It was a choice. One she wasn't ready to make tonight, but one she could see on the horizon without wanting to run for the hills. Chapter 6. The invite. April stood in front of her bathroom mirror, clutching her toothbrush like a microphone. Carl, she said to her reflection. I've been thinking. Maybe you could come with me to my next therapy session. She paused, grimaced. No, too casual. Sounds like I'm inviting him to brunch. She tried again, lowering her voice to what she hoped was calm and confident. Carl, I'd really love for you to join me at therapy. It's important to me. She winced. Ugh, sounds like a hostage negotiation. Her reflection stared back, unimpressed. April groaned, tossing the toothbrush into the cup. Why was this so hard? Carl had been amazing about the whole therapy thing. Supportive, even proud. But asking him to come along? That felt like crossing into uncharted territory. Couples therapy. The phrase alone sounded like a reality show where everyone cried in slow motion. She paced the bathroom, muttering under her breath. Okay, April. Just rip off the Band-Aid. No weird metaphors. No panic babble. Just ask. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A text from Carl. Dinner tonight? My treat. April stared at the screen, her stomach flipping. Perfect. She'd ask him over dinner. Public place, neutral ground. Less chance of her blurting out something insane like, do you want to meet my therapist and also my inner demons? That evening, they sat at a cozy booth in a little Thai place Carl loved. April pushed noodles around her plate, rehearsing the line in her head like a Broadway monologue. Carl, I'd like you to come to therapy with me. Simple. Direct. No balloon metaphors. Carl smiled at her from across the table, his eyes warm. You've been quiet tonight. Everything okay? April's pulse spiked. Now, say it now. Actually, she cleared her throat. I wanted to ask you something. Carl leaned in, curious. Shoot. April opened her mouth, and panic hijacked her brain. Would you, like to meet my therapist? Carl blinked. Meet your therapist? Yes, April said too loudly. A couple at the next table glanced over. She lowered her voice. I mean, not like a blind date or anything. Just come with me. To a session. For us. Carl's brows lifted, but his expression stayed calm. Couples therapy? April nodded, cheeks burning. Not because we're broken or anything. Just, I think it could help. You know, communication, future stuff. And she's great. Really great. Like, if therapists had Yelp reviews, she'd have 5 stars and a waitlist. Carl chuckled, reaching across the table to squeeze her hand. April, relax. I think it's a good idea. April blinked. You do. Of course, Carl said, smiling. If it matters to you, I'm in. Relief crashed over her like a wave. Wow. Okay. That was way easier than I expected. Carl grinned. You really thought I'd say no? I thought you'd think I was overreacting, April admitted. Carl shook his head. Wanting to work on us isn't overreacting. It's smart. April stared at him, heart swelling. For a guy who hated drama, he sure knew how to deliver the perfect line. As they left the restaurant, April felt lighter than she had in weeks. The invite was out, Carl was on board, and for the first time, the future didn't feel like a trapdoor. It felt like a door she could walk through, maybe even with a little swagger. Chapter 7. Couples Therapy? Comedy Edition. April sat in the familiar lavender-scented office, her knee bouncing like a jackhammer. She'd been here before, alone, spilling her guts to Dr. Marlene, but today was different. Today, Carl was coming. Her boyfriend. Her steady, loyal, annoyingly perfect boyfriend. And they were about to talk about feelings in front of a professional witness. The door opened, and Carl stepped in, looking calm as ever in his navy sweater and jeans. April hated how composed he seemed. Meanwhile, she felt like a squirrel on espresso. Carl, Dr. Marlene said warmly, rising to shake his hand. So nice to meet you. Likewise, Carl replied, his voice smooth, his smile easy. He sat beside April on the couch, close enough that their knees touched. April tried not to hyperventilate. Dr. Marlene settled into her chair, crossing her legs with practiced grace. So, April's told me a little about what brings you here, but I'd love to hear from both of you. What do you hope to get out of today? Carl glanced at April, then back at the therapist. Honestly, I'm here because April asked me to be, and because I love her. If this helps us, I'm all in. April's heart did a weird flip. All in. 2 words that sounded like a promise and a dare. Dr. Marlene smiled. That's a great start. April cleared her throat, wishing she'd worn something less sweat-inducing. I've been freaking out about the future. About forever. Not because of Carl, he's amazing, but because I've been putting this insane pressure on myself to make everything perfect. Like my parents' marriage. And it's been messing with my head. Carl squeezed her hand gently, his expression calm. I get that. You do. April blinked. Sure, Carl said. Forever's a big word. It's normal to feel overwhelmed. Dr. Marlene nodded. Exactly. Fear doesn't mean failure, it means you care. But let's talk about what makes a relationship work. Spoiler alert, it's not magic. April leaned forward, curious despite herself. Okay, hit me. Love isn't fairy dust, Dr. Marlene said, her tone blunt but kind. It's work, dedication, respect, loyalty. If you're not ready to go all in, to put your partner above every other person in your life, then you're not ready for a relationship that lasts. Carl nodded without hesitation. I agree. April stared at him. You do. Of course, Carl said. That's how I feel about us. Something cracked open in April's chest, like sunlight breaking through clouds. For weeks, she'd been drowning in fear, convinced she was broken. But here was Carl, steady as ever, ready to do the work. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready too. Dr. Marlene smiled. You two have a strong foundation. Fear is normal. What matters is what you do with it. April laughed softly, relief washing over her. So, we're not doomed? Not even close, Dr. Marlene said. You're just human. Carl grinned, squeezing April's hand again. Told you. April rolled her eyes, but her smile was real this time. For the first time in weeks, forever didn't feel like a trapdoor. Felt like a choice. A hard, messy, beautiful choice. And maybe she was ready to make it. Chapter 8. The Parent Talk. April parked in the driveway, the black leather journal sitting on the passenger seat like contraband. She'd spent the entire ride rehearsing what she was going to say, but every version sounded like the opening line of a courtroom drama. Your Honor, I confess, I read Dad's private thoughts. She grabbed the journal, shoved it into her tote, and marched up the steps before she could lose her nerve. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon rolls, the kind of scent that usually made her feel safe. Today, it felt like a setup for an emotional ambush. Her mom was in the kitchen, humming as she wiped down the counter. April, twice in 1 week. What did we do to deserve this? April forced a smile. Just needed to talk. Her mom's brows lifted. Talk, or I need bail money talk? Talk, April said, dropping her bag on a chair. Where's Dad? In the garage, pretending he's fixing something. Her mom said with a grin. Want me to get him? April hesitated, then nodded. Yeah, both of you. Her mom gave her a curious look but called out toward the garage. A moment later, her dad appeared, wiping his hands on a rag, looking as solid and unshakable as ever. April's throat tightened. This was the man who'd written those blunt little prophecies. The man who knew her better than anyone, and apparently better than she knew herself. They sat at the kitchen table, sunlight streaming through the window. April took a deep breath and pulled the journal from her bag, setting it on the table like a bomb. Her dad's eyes widened. Where'd you get that? Your nightstand, April said, voice trembling. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have read it, but I did. Her mom's gaze flicked between them. What's in it? April swallowed hard. Predictions. About me. About my relationships. Dad. You wrote that I'm going to ruin things with Carl. Silence fell like a curtain. Her dad leaned back, his expression calm but serious. I wrote what I feared. April blinked. Feared. He nodded. Every time you brought someone home, I saw things you didn't. Patterns. Red flags. I worried you'd settle for less than you deserve. And with Carl, he's a good man. The best you've introduced. My fear wasn't about him. It was about you. April's chest tightened. Because I panic? Because you run when things get real, her dad said gently. You've always chased fireworks. Carl's not fireworks. He's steady flame. And I worried you'd mistake that for boring. April stared at him, tears stinging her eyes. I thought you were saying I'm doomed. Her mom reached across the table, squeezing her hand. Sweetheart, you're not doomed. You're human. And you're taking this seriously enough to talk to us, and to get help. That's something to be proud of. April let out a shaky laugh. I've been using your marriage as my gold standard. Like if I can't have what you have, I've failed. Her mom smiled softly. Our marriage isn't your finish line. It's just our story. You have to write your own. Her dad nodded. And if it looks different, that's okay. The only expectation we have is for you to be happy. April wiped her eyes, laughing through the tears. You two are disgustingly wise. Her mom grinned. Perks of being old. April laughed harder, the weight in her chest finally lifting. For the first time, she felt like she could breathe, really breathe. She wasn't broken. She wasn't doomed. She was just learning. And maybe, just maybe, she was ready to stop running. Chapter 9. The decision. The city was wrapped in winter's hush, streetlights glowing like tiny halos as April walked aimlessly through the park. Her breath puffed in the cold air, mingling with the thoughts swirling in her head. Therapy had helped. Talking to her parents had helped. But now it was just her. The crunch of snow under her boots, and one question echoing like a drumbeat. Am I ready? She stopped by a frozen fountain, staring at the brittle surface. Forever. The word still felt heavy, but not like a trapdoor anymore. More like a locked gate she had the key to but hadn't decided to use. She pulled her scarf tighter, muttering under her breath. Okay, April, let's be real. You love Carl. You laugh with him. You trust him. He's the guy who brings you soup when you're sick and remembers your coffee order down to the extra foam. He's not fireworks, he's steady flame. And maybe that's better. Fireworks burn out. Flames keep you warm. She snorted. Wow, that sounded like a Pinterest quote. Kill me now. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. A text from Carl. Thinking of you. Hope you're warm. April stared at the screen, her heart doing that weird flip again. Warm. That was Carl in one word. Warm and steady and here. Always here. She sank onto a bench, pulling her coat tighter. So what's the real fear? She whispered. It's not him. It's me. It's failing. It's screwing up something good because I'm human and messy and terrified. She thought of her parents' words. Our marriage isn't your finish line. It's just our story. Her dad's steady voice. The only expectation we have is for you to be happy. And Dr. Marlene's blunt truth. Love isn't fairy dust. It's work, respect, and loyalty. April laughed softly, shaking her head. Okay, universe. I get it. No magic wands. Just work. And maybe wine. She stood, brushing snow from her coat, and felt something shift inside her. A quiet click, like a lock turning. Forever wasn't a guarantee. It wasn't a fairy tale. It was a choice. A hard, messy, beautiful choice. And she wanted to make it. With Carl. As she walked home, her steps felt lighter, her breath easier. She didn't have a grand plan or a Pinterest-perfect speech. Just a decision. To stop running, to stop chasing fireworks, and to choose the steady flame that had been warming her all along. Tomorrow she'd tell Carl. And maybe she'd even manage to do it without blurting out something insane like, "Do you want to die together?" But honestly, no promises. Chapter 10. The proposal twist. April had a plan. A real, grown-up, Pinterest board-worthy plan. She'd invite Carl over, cook his favorite dinner, steak with garlic butter and that ridiculous chocolate lava cake he loved, and then give the speech she'd been rehearsing in her head all day. The one that started with "I choose you" and ended with "forever doesn't scare me anymore." She even bought candles. Real candles. Not the dusty ones from her closet that smelled vaguely like old crayons. Tonight was going to be perfect. Except Carl beat her to it. He showed up at her door looking annoyingly handsome, carrying a bouquet of tulips and wearing that smile that made her knees forget how to function. "Hey," he said, kissing her cheek. "You look amazing." April grinned, trying to keep her nerves in check. "Thanks. Come in." Dinner went smoothly, almost too smoothly. Carl was relaxed, laughing, telling stories about work while April nodded and smiled like a normal person, all while her inner monologue screamed, "Say the speech. Say the speech before you chicken out." Finally, after dessert, she took a deep breath. "Carl, there's something I need to tell you." "Funny," Carl said, setting down his fork. "Me too." April blinked. "Oh, okay. You first." Carl smiled, reaching into his pocket. "Sure." And then he pulled out a small velvet box. April's brain short-circuited. "Wait, what?" Carl opened the box, revealing a ring that sparkled like it had its own power source. "April Sonnis," he said, his voice steady and warm. "I love you. I've loved you since the day you spilled coffee on my laptop and tried to bribe me with muffins. You're my best friend, my favorite person, and the only future I want. Will you marry me?" April's mouth opened, closed, opened again. Words refused to form. Her heart was doing cartwheels, her brain was screaming, and then, because she was April, she blurted out, "Are you trying to kill me?" Carl froze. No." April laughed, half hysterical. "I had this whole speech planned. Candles, Pinterest-level sincerity. And you just..." She gestured wildly at the ring. "You ambushed me." Carl grinned, relief flooding his face. "Is that a yes?" April stared at him, tears pricking her eyes. "Of course it's a yes, you ridiculous man." She launched herself across the table, nearly knocking over a candle, and kissed him like her life depended on it. The waiter, because of course the waiter chose that exact moment to bring the check, cleared his throat awkwardly. Congratulations?" he said, setting the bill down as April and Carl broke apart, laughing like teenagers. April slipped the ring onto her finger, staring at it through happy tears. Forever didn't feel like a trap anymore. It felt like a choice, a messy, beautiful, terrifying, wonderful choice, and she was all in. Chapter 11. Engagement shenanigans. April had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the ring on her finger sparkled like a tiny disco ball, reminding her that she'd said yes. Yes to Carl. Yes to forever. Yes to a future that suddenly felt less like a trap and more like a warm, messy adventure. She and Carl decided to break the news in person, which meant bracing for her parents' reactions. A mix of joy, tears, and possibly unsolicited wedding planning. When they walked into the house, April's mom was in the kitchen, humming as she kneaded dough. Her dad was at the table, reading the paper like a man who had never once panicked about gluten. "Hey, you too," her mom said, wiping her hands on a towel. "What brings you here so early?" April glanced at Carl, who gave her a subtle nod. "Showtime." "So," April began, holding up her left hand like a game show prize. "We have news." Her mom's eyes zeroed in on the ring. She gasped so loudly the neighbor's dog barked. "Oh my God. April Sonnis. Are you? Did you, Carl, did you?" "Yes," Carl said, grinning. "I asked." She said yes. Her mom shrieked, launching herself across the kitchen to hug April so hard she nearly lost circulation. "I knew it. I knew it. Oh, sweetheart. I'm so happy." April laughed, tears pricking her eyes. "Mom, breathe. You're crushing my ribs." Her dad stood slowly, setting down his paper. His expression was calm, but his eyes were warm. He walked over, hugged April gently, then shook Carl's hand with quiet pride. "Congratulations, you two." April smiled, heart swelling. "Thanks, Dad." He glanced at the ring, then at April, his mouth twitching like he was holding back a joke. "Guess I'll have to write a new journal entry." April groaned. Dad. Her mom whipped around. Journal entry? Long story, April muttered, cheeks flaming. I'll explain later. Her mom was already tearing up again. Oh, this is wonderful. We need champagne. And cake. And, oh my God. I have to call Aunt Linda. April grabbed her mom's arm before she could sprint for the phone. Mom, please. Let me breathe for 5 minutes before the family group chat explodes. Carl chuckled, slipping an arm around April's waist. I think your mom's more excited than you are. April grinned, leaning into him. She's been planning this since I was 5. Her dad smirked. Just promise me one thing. What's that? April asked. Don't let her turn the wedding into a Broadway production. April laughed. No promises. As her mom popped a bottle of champagne and her dad disappeared to find the good glasses, April looked at Carl, her heart steady for the first time in weeks. This was it. The messy, loud, imperfect, wonderful life she'd been afraid to choose. And now, she was all in. Chapter 12. Therapy follow-up. The survival kit. April and Carl sat side by side on the familiar lavender couch, their knees touching, their hands loosely intertwined. It had been 2 weeks since the proposal, and April still caught herself staring at the ring like it was a tiny alien artifact. She was engaged. Engaged. The word felt surreal, like wearing shoes 2 sizes too big but knowing you'd grow into them. Dr. Marlene breezed into the room, her scarf a riot of colors, her smile warm enough to melt glaciers. Well, she said, settling into her chair. Look at you two. You're glowing. April laughed nervously. That's probably the champagne. Carl grinned. And maybe the fact that she said yes. Dr. Marlene's eyes twinkled. Ah, so the rumors are true. Congratulations. Thanks, April said, cheeks flushing. I thought it might be good to check in. Make sure we're doing this right. Dr. Marlene chuckled. Sweetheart, there's no right. There's only work. And since you're here, I'll give you my relationship survival kit. Carl raised an eyebrow. Survival kit? Oh yes, Dr. Marlene said, leaning forward like a magician about to reveal a trick. 3 rules. Simple but not easy. April grabbed her notebook like a star student. Hit me. Rule 1, Dr. Marlene said, holding up a finger. Communicate like you're on a reality show, but without the screaming. Say what you feel even when it's messy. Silence is where resentment breeds. Carl nodded. Makes sense. Rule 2, she continued. Fight fair. No scorekeeping, no low blows, and for the love of sanity, never start a sentence with you always or you never. Those are relationship grenades. April scribbled furiously. Got it. No grenades. Rule 3, Dr. Marlene said, her tone softening. Choose each other. Every day. Not just when it's easy. Love isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily practice. April felt her throat tighten. That's beautiful. It's also hard, dear. Marlene said with a grin. But if you do those 3 things, you'll have a marriage that lasts. Not because it's perfect, but because it's real. Carl squeezed April's hand, his voice steady. I'm in. April looked at him, her heart swelling. Me too. Dr. Marlene clapped her hands. Good. Now go celebrate. And remember, therapy isn't just for fixing problems. It's for building strength. Come back anytime. As they left the office, April felt lighter, steadier. Forever didn't feel like a cliff anymore. It felt like a road, long, winding, sometimes bumpy, but worth every step. And she wasn't walking it alone. Epilogue. April's journal. The pen hovered over the page like it was waiting for permission. April stared at the blank sheet, her new leather-bound journal resting on her lap. She'd bought it yesterday, black cover, crisp pages, the kind that whispered fresh start. She smiled wryly. Guess it runs in the family, she muttered, thinking of her dad's prophetic little book. Except hers wouldn't be predictions. No verdicts, just thoughts. Messy, imperfect, human thoughts. She wrote the date at the top, then paused, tapping the pen against her lip. Finally, she began. January 31st. Dear me, today, I realized something big. Forever isn't a trap. It's a choice. A hard, messy, beautiful choice. And I made it. I said yes to Carl. Yes to the guy who makes me laugh when I want to cry, who knows my coffee order better than I do, and who somehow thinks my panic spirals are adorable. I used to think love had to look like my parents' marriage. Perfect, polished, no cracks. But now I know the truth. Love isn't fairy dust. It's work. It's choosing each other every day, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard. Am I still scared? Yep. Do I still overthink? Absolutely. But here's the difference. I'm not running anymore. I'm walking straight into the chaos with Carl by my side. And honestly, that feels like magic. Yes. If Dad writes another journal entry about me, I hope it says, she figured it out. Eventually, April set the pen down, smiling through tears. She closed the journal, slipped it onto her nightstand, and glanced at the ring on her finger. It sparkled in the soft lamplight, not like fireworks, bright and fleeting, but like a steady flame. Warm, constant, home. She grabbed her phone and texted Carl. Miss you. Come over? His reply was instant. On my way. Always. April laughed softly, curling up on the bed. Forever didn't scare her anymore. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't easy. But it was theirs. And that was enough.